May 20th, 1967, a date that would haunt Stefan Michalak, an experienced prospector exploring Falcon Lake's rocky terrain. The air, thick with mist, carried a mysterious hum growing louder, more insistent. Unaware, Stefan inched closer to the unknown, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. His curiosity pulled him towards a discovery that would defy reality and ignite a mystery still unsolved. This is Casual History. What is up? What is up? We are back again. What's up, Jeff? How you doing?
Not too bad. Welcome everyone to another episode of Casual History. Jacob's taken over this week, and he brought an interesting story that I had no clue that what we were doing until 2 seconds ago.
Which is good. I like keeping you in the dark on this stuff. This is a really cool story that I had heard probably like a couple months back. Before we started doing the podcast, and I instantly clicked with me this week, and I was like, I have to do this one and share it with you, because I don't know about you, Jeffrey, but what do you believe about aliens? Are you a believer?
Yeah,
you are. Okay,
I think they exist.
So little green men, or you're just talking about aliens in general?
I think aliens exist. Mathematically impossible for them not to exist.
I'm kind of the same mind. I think they exist now. Whether they've showed up on Earth and done random things or met people and abducted things, I have no idea. I feel pretty kind of on the skeptical side of that. But this story might change your mind, which is where I'm excited to kind of go. So let's just hop right into the story here. So just kind of setting the scene. Falcon Lake, situated in the wilderness of Manitoba, Canada, is a haven for natural beauty. But for Stefan Michalak, an ordinary expedition on May 20th of 1967 was about to unfold into something unimaginable. Stefan was a pragmatic man, a mechanic from Winnipeg with a love for geology. In the 1960s, with a scientific advancement in Cold War intrigue, it was a time that sparked curiosity even in the most rational minds. Yet Stefan remained grounded, guided by logic and reason. Sounds very much like you, Jeffrey. Very, very logical.
You think I'm logical?
I think you are.
I'm a conspiracy theorist. How am I logical?
That is true. That is true. But you seem pretty logical. I don't know. You're fighting me back on the sidekicks. Now I'm bringing aliens to the table. I'm challenging what you know.
Yeah.
So he set out that spring morning, aiming to explore Falcon Lake's rocky terrain. A day promised nothing when a group of geese flapping their wings and honking drew his attention. Now, normally geese honking in the background was just background noise to Stefan. But today, their uproar was extreme, almost as if they were disturbed by something extraordinary. So, see, Jeffrey, it's already starting. Are you a believer yet?
Maybe a predator, like geese honking.
No, absolutely not.
Funny phrase.
I know, but that is directly pulled from the story, which is very interesting. But yeah. Then a mysterious hum growing into a compelling whir shattered the calm. So Stefan's heart began to race at this point. From his perspective, the sight that met his eyes was both terrifying and inexplicable. Two strange cigar-shaped objects were descending in the distance, one gently landing near a cluster of trees, and the other hovering and then ascending skyward. These objects were not static either. They transformed right before his eyes, shifting from a reddish-orange glow to a metallic silver hue. So what do you think of that, Jeffrey? What kind of explanation, what kind of predator is that?
Sounds like a alien, Jacob. Sounds like an alien.
It does sound like an alien.
I didn't have a good comeback for that.
I know, that's okay. I got you, dude. So obviously, just like I would be, fear and fascination kind of battled within him. Curiosity overcoming his apprehension, Stefan reached for his sketchbook. With a trembling hand, he drew the outlines of the craft, sketches that would later be released online. So that's a really cool part of this story too, is there's a lot of actual photos that I'm going to be posting for you guys
that
to give you some context. That, yes, the actual drawing that he drew that night, as well as several others showing the aftermath of him and different things that we'll get into later.
Okay,
but
cool. I just want to say it's not setting the groundwork for something believable already.
Why not? What do you mean?
First off, you have him having to draw what he saw. So that's already going to take away credibility. It's like, okay,
What do you mean?
why? Okay, like you don't have a photo, obviously, of the thing. You can't video this thing. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
supposed to take someone's drawing that he
He went out on a
drew.
prospecting mission, Jeffrey. He wasn't bringing his camera. It was also the 1960s, you know?
No,
A little bit harder.
I
Paper's more
understand.
easy to come by.
I understand why he wouldn't have a camera with him. It's just gonna make it hard for me to believe a sketch, you know?
Hmm. Okay. All right. Well, let's see if I can change your mind here. So, while sketching, he actually became aware of a rising warmth in the air, and then a sulfurous smell that started to fill his nostrils, akin to the odor of exhaust fumes. His mind, trained to seek logical explanations like us, worked feverishly. Was this a downed aircraft? Was this something in need of help? The possibility seemed absurd, yet it nagged at him, urging him to investigate. So it smelled like sulfur, basically. He was smelling exhaust
Hmm.
fumes.
I
Um,
mean, yeah, okay.
yeah,
And where was he at at this point? Like what's the
he's in
location?
Canada. Yeah, so
Canada.
he's in the middle of the woods in Canada.
Okay.
Um, so as he approached, his terror gave way to a deep-seated curiosity. The object's metallic surface gleamed golden in the sunlight, warmth emanating as if to invite him closer. He could almost hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears as he reached out, trembling. Could he be of assistance?
This is really vivid, Jacob.
Yeah, yeah, right. It's like almost like you're there, right?
The
We're
human
all there with him.
experience pounding in his ears.
Yes. Was this some sort of secret military experiment gone awry? Or was he facing something entirely beyond his understanding? I guess we'll never know. And that's where the podcast ends.
Yeah, goodbye.
And no, there's just some more. It goes a lot deeper here. So his family, his comfortable life in Winnipeg, all faded as this mystery consumed him. The world was hurtling towards the space age, but Stefan found himself confronted with something that challenged his very fabric of his reality.
Okay. Pause real quick. Okay.
Yes,
So
please.
he's standing. The scene that's set is he's standing close to the downed craft, and he sees it's sun setting, and he smells sulfur.
Yes. So he's saying he's smelling sulfur. He saw two cigar-shaped objects fly over this lake. One like flew straight up and away, like unreasonably fast, and one actually came and landed in a small little clearing next to the lake, like a little bit on
Landed
a
or
little
didn't
hill.
crash? Landed.
No, landed.
Landed. Okay.
Yes.
For some reason, I my brain heard crash.
No, no, no. Definitely just landed in a small little clearing right next to this lake.
Okay.
So, yeah, so now that's where kind of the story starts to unfold here because it's not just like, hey, I saw this thing and it went away. Like, he gets to actually experience this craft. And this is a true firsthand like story from him himself.
True firsthand account. That's what we'll
Yes,
say.
true firsthand account of his story. But there's a lot
Right.
to this, Jeffrey. I think I might convince you a little bit. So,
I'm ready to be convinced. I mean I do think that aliens exist
yeah.
out there, but whether this man in Canada, in Winnipeg, Canada, sketched down a real life alien craft, we'll see.
I don't know, Jeffrey. I think I'm going to make a believer out of you. So if okay, so like let's just this theory then. So let's say he actually saw everything that we just like prompted here, like the cigar shaped objects, something landed. What do you think it was? Like, what would be your theory if you were in that same position?
Immediately would go to the two possibilities: either government craft that is not public, so I don't know what it looks like,
Right.
and this is something new, or something out of this world, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only two possibilities, I would think, when you're seeing something foreign like that.
Right.
So,
And that's what kept popping up in this story as well was as I was reading his account, that was very much the reason why, like, the first instinct is like just like in a horror movie, like, hey, something scary happens, you're out in the woods somewhere. The last thing that you're gonna do is run towards it, right? Like that seems like the opposite of reaction of what normal humans would, do in that situation. But he
mhm.
very much was again, I guess I think he had some sort of military background, but he was very much thinking of like he was scared. He knew it was different. He knew it was weird, but he also thought the same thing that you just did. He was like, is this some sort of military craft? Is this something that like they're landing because they need some help? Like, and so
Mm.
he like reluctantly made his way towards it. And so that made a lot more sense to me because I was like, if you just would have told me, like, I saw this weird shape just land right in front of me and it was like spooky beyond all reason, I would be running the other way. I'd be heading
Yeah.
back home.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of what makes this a little bit believable too. And there's going to be a lot of evidence from this that I think will be very convincing. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the actual main meat of the story here, because this is where it gets really cool. So, Stefan's logical mind and his mechanic's intuition were both betraying him as he approached the bizarre object near Falcon Lake's cluster of trees. Despite the fear gnawing at him, his curiosity and sense of responsibility urged him on. Was this an aircraft in distress? Did someone inside need his help? The object had landed in a small little clearing, a natural amphitheater surrounded by dense woods. These are where rocks seemed to form a like protective ring in the middle of the woods here. Sunlight broke through the tree canopy, casting a magical glow on the alien craft, illuminating the grass and shimmering rocks. The normal sounds of nature were replaced by an eerie silence, and the metallic object was both out of place and yet strangely at home in this setting. As he drew closer, the metallic objects began to unfold. Its seamless surface was like a polished mirror, reflecting the world around it in a gold sheen. There were no joints, no rivets, and no visible signs of human craftsmanship. So that's also something really odd. But again, could be some sort of, advanced tech that he just didn't know about. The entire structure appeared to be one singular piece, glowing with an inner warmth. Curved and aerodynamic, it was both futuristic and organic, and an astonishing fusion of technology and artistry. Stefan's heart pounded as he examined the strange markings on the ground where the object had landed. His fingers reached out to touch the surface at one point, feeling a propulsion unlike anything he had ever encountered. The heat was so intense that it actually melted the fingertips of his gloves. So he actually had prospector gloves on at the time, as well as even like one of those masks, because the lights were really bright.
Yeah.
The door even opened for him. So there was a door that actually opened for him there, revealing an intricate interior filled with lights and controls that defied understanding. Patterns of glowing symbols adorned the walls, and a gentle hum emanated from the craft's inner machinery. Actually, there's also another little tidbit that isn't in this as well, but apparently he had heard voices coming from inside. He never got to see beings or what they were, but he definitely heard multiple voices from his account coming from when the doors actually opened for him.
Let's just analyze this real quick.
Yes.
So let's say you were in this situation.
Yeah.
You walk up, you see this thing that is being described as not human, not natural. Do you walk into an opening that you see in it?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't walk into the opening, and no, I would not either.
Yeah,
I would definitely.
So
not.
how do you take that? So he walks up to it. He sees the door.
No, so he walks up to it actually in the clearing. It was before the door opened, and he actually had attempted to touch it at one point. He gotten that close, where he attempted to touch it, but it was so hot that it melted his gloves.
Right.
And then after that situation had happened, a door did open on one side of the craft.
Okay. So that's what I'm trying to get to. So then he burns himself because it's hot.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then he sees a door open and he makes his way to that door.
Yeah. So no, he doesn't make his way to the door. He's just watching this unfold before him. So he's not moving. He's not going in it. Nothing like that.
Okay.
And in fact,
I'm just trying to get the human nature of it.
Oh yeah.
It's like a crime scene.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the story correctly when someone's claiming this magical, mystical experience of a foreign object.
I understand.
I immediately go, would I mean, maybe, because I'm curious, and maybe he's curious too.
Yeah.
Obviously he was, to be able to do what he's saying happened. But just just trying to make sure I get the facts straight.
Yeah. And also another little point too, that wasn't in here as well, was like he was still of the mind that this could be like a military aircraft that was in trouble. So he was actually yelling to the voices that he was hearing, like, "Hey, are you guys okay?" Like he was literally trying to talk to the people inside, because that's what he just thought. He thought his misunderstanding and his like fear was just coming from this was super unknown,
Mm.
and not that like he was thinking aliens at first.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of where he was coming from in general. He was apparently a very practical person.
Yeah.
And he was just thinking, hey, I got to help these guys. Like something was going wrong with their craft. And that was his attention. But he was actually yelling, you know, if they needed help.
Knowing that this is before the Bob Lazar claim,
Mm-hmm.
because Bob Lazar was in the 80s and this is in the 60s. The only
Right.
thread that does connect, whether Bob Lazar, again, whether you believe Bob Lazar or not, that he was, do you know a little bit backstory of Bob Lazar?
I only know a little bit of it. So yeah, if you want to, please enlighten me.
Just the basics of it is he was supposedly hired to reverse engineer alien spacecraft that we had in secret bunkers in United States. And his claim came very reluctantly and anonymously for a while until his identity got exposed, and it's a whole ordeal. But basically,
okay.
there's a Netflix documentary about it. He's got a few books, but and he gets raided all the time. He's still a scientist that works in his own laboratory, from what I understand, and is looking for a missing what am I thinking of? Periodic table. He's looking for the missing. I think it's called M16. No,
The
I'm
band.
trying to think. No,
I found them.
No, there's a
They're on Spotify, dude.
It's slipping my mind, but there's a missing element that he's been searching for that essentially, I think this all ties together, but essentially was the key to this reverse engineering of these spacecraft that were supposedly non-human. And the only connection to this, and again, whether he drew, if you want to claim they're all fake, okay, this is where you could claim this, is he either took the example of it being a natural formed like spacecraft, for instance, how he describes how Stefan describes the spacecraft being natural, no holes, no rivets, like one piece, fully formed, like whether it was like molded or shaped out of something, and it just came out, and it's this naturalistic form. Bob Lazar claimed a similar thing, where the story goes that he walks into the base, and as he's being introduced to this program, he sees a hangar that has all different kinds of shapes of alien spacecraft that were, again, looked like one piece, and that they were almost like melted wax, or that they were like, they were like one naturalistic formation that was then this spacecraft, right? And so the cigar shape and those certain shapes are common, but they're not always the same, basically.
Yeah.
And that's his story was he saw these craft and he was working on the tech to try to figure out what they were, and it's really
how
an
are these
in-depth
people
story.
Still around? Like,
well,
how does someone like that like just get to walk around and tell these stories though? That's also my skepticism too. It's like obviously people have to work at these military bases.
Who's going to believe them? We're 30 years away, but we're 30 years away from, or so 20 something years away from that point from which he claimed this was happening. And still it's all question marks. Still, he's ridiculed for it. Still, it's just now coming around with these evidence of the hearings and stuff like that coming around to where you can kind of take him maybe a bit more seriously if it does align. But like, I think if you let's just go explicit. If you were to take out an asset like that, a scientist, if I'm the United States and I take out an asset, take out meaning, put him at the bottom of the lake. Okay. After he started claiming these things, you give credibility to that claim. Because why would you need to get rid of him after he claimed it? He did this publicly in secret and got his story out. And then he became known. And then there is almost like this little bit of buffer from maybe being taken out. But it didn't stop the ridicule and the not the ridicule, the surveillance that was very prominently recorded by him on his life and it has been consistently. So like with someone like that, you just barrage them with surveillance and you make their life difficult, but you don't have to get rid of them. The public already doesn't
Just
celebrate
discredit
that.
them. That's all you have to
Yeah,
do, right?
you don't. Yeah,
Discredit
exactly.
them anywhere you
So,
can. Interesting.
but
See,
anyway,
now I'm
just
gonna have to
tie
go
back.
listen to that story.
Yeah, it's interesting, and there's a documentary on Netflix about it. Yeah, a few years ago actually, and then there's some more stuff that's come out in the last year or so. But
Whoa.
just ties back to this story that we're talking about with Stefan and the way he described the craft as a cigar shape, but it being naturalistic and it looks like it's one piece.
Right.
That's where it triggered that brain. And if we're going conspiracy and we're going down to what's the thread here, and if I'm an examiner, I'm thinking, okay, that's the thread so far, but does that mean that Bob Lazar took that idea from him in this story, or is it just the commonalities? Right.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And that's not the first time I've heard of cigar shaped, like that being the story too of crafts that they're seeing.
But here's the thing. Have you noticed the theme? We've switched. They used to be, space disc, like disc shape.
Oh, sure.
And then all of a sudden there's now the cigar shape has been
But I mean, they weren't exclusive. Normal. They weren't exclusive to a certain time, was it? Not that I am aware of.
Maybe it's the prominent, like the most dominant account of like seeing something had been, at least from what Aliens show and those sort of things, had been like a bell shape or a disc shape. Cigar shape, maybe that's always been a thing. That's just I haven't been aware of that term, but it feels like that's been the new like buzzword is cigar shaped object.
Interesting. So okay, if there's anybody listening that knows about this or knows some crazy stories on alien stuff, I'm super interested. It's like I'm on that side of like, again, the whole reason why we have this podcast is because I'm curious. That's just naturally the way I am. And so like hearing that makes me want to deep dive into this subject because I don't know what I believe yet. And I think that's the fun part about like exploring these things. And like that was kind of how I approached this story too, was, hey, we're a history podcast and this is the most researched like alien encounter story of all time.
Really?
Like, yes, this is. And so like that's where we're going to get to, obviously, after the story kind of happens and unfolds. Like we'll talk about certain things where like it wasn't just like, hey, I saw this thing and now I told a TV reporter and that's how it spread around. Like this was very much like he called the police. The FBI went out to investigate. There were tests done on the area. Like there's a whole bunch of backstory and evidence still there. So that's where it gets cool.
So then where we left off was a door opened as he's next to the craft, and he sees inside glowing shapes and almost can hear voices. That's what
So in his account, it says that he heard multiple voices. Now he never saw anybody from the door. Like apparently light was pouring out. It was incredibly bright. He was having a hard time looking in, but he was hearing two voices as if they were conversating with each other. And that's why he was prompted, like as scared as he was, to yell out like, hey, you guys need some help. I saw your craft land. Like that's what he's doing as he's standing in this field next to this thing.
Did you ever see anything or read anything about what, like if he recognized the language of the voices? Like when you say voices, he just heard human-like voices speaking, tone, like English being spoken, another language being spoken.
So from the articles that I was reading, he was able to recognize that it was like language. It wasn't like he heard like a different language being spoken. He could tell that like it was voices. It was in the same range as voices. So he could just tell like somebody was talking to someone, like mumbling to each other.
Something to something. Okay.
Yes. And so that's really where he's coming from. So he didn't like hear like another language, not that I know of at least, or that he put in the account. Besides that, he knew that like he heard two distinct voices, what he claimed were voices, like chattering with each other a little bit while that door was open.
Okay. So they don't have telepathy if they're alien.
Right. Yeah. So there's
something
still
to know.
Speaking somewhat out loud if that's
right, which is an interesting concept in itself, because vocal cords and the process of pushing air through your body to make noises and to communicate.
We don't know that it was through vocal cords, Jeffrey.
Huh?
We don't know if it was through vocal cords.
No, exactly. But I'm just saying that you can almost kind of I would assume from there, a noise being made means
Right.
that there's something to make the noise. So
Yes, no, of
so does
course.
that mean that air has to be involved? Like, can you
Maybe.
make noise in an environment where there's no air?
That's
So no,
interesting.
do you see why I get
Interesting.
there, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so then they're biological beings maybe that need air just like we do, or there's some maybe kind
You're
of
right.
connection
There's some
to the
connection.
biology of it. But that's such a small thing, but my
No,
brain is
no, I
hooked up
love
on that.
that. That's what drew me to the story too, man. I love getting into the weeds of this stuff. And so yeah, like you're right. Like there might be a common thread of somewhat with these aliens, at least according to the story. So if we
Yeah.
were like to extrapolate that information, you're right. Like they have some way of communicating like through air, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like as the door opened too, this bright light, he had his actual like welder's helmet on, or his actual prospecting helmet on during this whole time. And so he was able to make out a little bit. And so that's where he was able to see like literally like inner machinery inside.
Mm.
Um, so there was mechanics all inside there, but obviously nothing that he recognized. So he recognized it as like otherworldly, nothing that made sense to him. Um, and so it said, time stretched on as he wandered and lost in the awe and wonder. But then, without warning, a mechanical whirring shattered his like stillness, and the door began to close. And Stefan's awe turned to terror. The object was preparing to leave. So again, he's standing right next to this sucker. Um, as the door, like all of a sudden, is closing back up, and he's leaving, but he's kind of struck, right? Obviously, by what he's seeing. He's kind of sitting in awe of what he's watching. So as he stumbled back, panic was kind of surging through him as the object's melody transformed into a deafening roar. He watched in horror as the vents on the object's side busted open, blasting out a searing heat. Um, the object ascended straight up into the sky with an incredible force, leaving nothing behind but a scorched patch of earth. Um, the blast from this vent actually struck Stefan directly in his chest with a physical impact, like knocking him off his feet and sending him crashing to the ground. It had actually set his hat and shirt on fire, which they do have evidence of at the scene itself. Like he like ripped them off because they were on fire. Um, it says, as the object vanished, Stefan's mind began racing with questions, confusion, and disbelief. What had he just witnessed? What had he just touched? But then darkness began to creep into the edges of his vision. Pain radiated from his chest where the blast had struck him, and his head had throbbed, and the world had begun to spin. He reached out, trying to steady himself, but his strength was failing him. The tranquil wilderness seemed to sway away from him as his thoughts become a blur. And then, with one final agonizing jolt of pain, Stefan lost consciousness.
He got knocked out by it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where we go to break, Jeffrey.
Okay, I got thoughts. We'll come back to. Yeah.
Good. All right. Okay, welcome back from that ad, that beautiful, amazing ad that you just heard. Thank you for supporting the podcast. But we kind of left off with Stefan being completely knocked out.
And I want to break it down. I want to break that series of events down real quick. And again, we're cold casing a story from a man in Canada. And
yes,
it's well, no, I'm setting this up because listen.
Okay.
And this is 60 years ago now. You said 1960?
It was 1960, yes.
Okay, yeah. So we're 63 years looking back at this story. And a few things hit me where I go, that sounds man-made. Okay? Just
interesting.
Hear me out.
Okay, go for it. I'm ready.
First off, the fact that it makes noise, a sound. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The almost rising pitch that he could almost, so from his description, he hears it like rev up, like it's gaining, and then it blasts off. Okay. For some reason in my brain, and this could be an illogical thing to think because we don't know anything about them, I guess, but let's say it was alien. Wouldn't you think, like, I don't know. I guess my immediate response is for it to have vents that open up and exhaust heat. It just sounds mechanical. It sounds like machinery. It doesn't sound like extraterrestrial craft that have, because I would assume if you're an alien and you're traveling light years, do you just have vents? That I don't
Well,
know. Like, it just for some reason my brain doesn't connect those those descriptions
hmm,
to something alien that would be, I would assume, obviously traveling light years and through space, right?
hmm.
Do our capsules, this is maybe a question and something I need to look up. Do our capsules have vents for heat?
I don't know. That's a
Like
really good
it
question.
sounds like, and maybe it's like a craft that can, again, we're thinking crazy.
Yeah,
Whatever.
we
Let me
are.
just go here.
I know. I love it.
If we're thinking this tech is like, again, let's say it's like a Play-Doh, and it's
Right.
something that is just the engineering of it is it's the it can form into anything you need it to be in any kind of terrain, right? That's why maybe it's a
Right.
not dimensional. What's
He
the when
said
it
it
can
was
go in
shifting in
water?
front of his eyes.
Right. So if it can go in water and go up through the air, like I can't remember what that term is called. But let's say it's shifting and moving. Does it just make vents for it to exhaust heat because it's part of our planet, so it has to adapt and do those certain
But
things?
also, like
It
Vince
just
is the
doesn't.
way he described it. Like, who knows what like
But a
vent
blast of
really
hot
meant?
air. Do you imagine that a blast of
Yeah.
hot air
Well,
would knock you out?
he also doesn't know what that blast was, and in fact, it'll get a little bit more intriguing too
He
because
doesn't think it came from the vents. That's what my immediate.
no, it came from the vents, but there's some extra stuff to it, like
Maybe it was as a way to that they were like knocking him out to get away. Like he already saw the
no.
thing. Okay.
No, it wasn't
Okay.
about like knocking him
Okay.
out. It was nothing like that. There's no
Okay.
theories like that. But also,
Okay.
I could counter Jeffrey of like
It
being,
just sounds
why
with
isn't alien crafts mechanical? Like, why
maybe it
is it
is.
not some advanced form of mechanics that we don't understand? Like, if you
Very
believe the
well could
stories
be.
about Area 51, people going there and like backwards reverse engineering technology, right, from those things, then
Right.
somehow they're made in some fashion. And so, like,
Right.
why aren't they semi-mechanical?
Maybe they very well could be. I just for again, my immediate human brain goes, you hear voices, you see an exhaust, you
Yeah,
feel heat coming off of it, you hear sounds of it revving up. Those sounds like those sound like a craft that we've built that humans can build, right?
yeah. Well,
So it
maybe
just
so.
makes me think, okay, so that's a craft that's been built. Like I think of drones. Like
Right.
that's what I think of. I think of hypersonic drones.
Mm, that's interesting. I mean, like, it could be like, but that's also like that's kind of prompted his same thought process. Like, what if this whole story is completely real? But what if it was some sort of advanced thing the military had? Like,
Yeah.
who knows? Like, there's still like all these possibilities still exist, but that's what
Yeah.
makes this story intriguing.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
because
interested to hear more about his description because again,
yes,
at first I don't know. It's got me both ways so far. So I'll let you take it from here. Get us
yeah.
back in.
All right, so we can kind of hop right back in. So, um, immediately, Stefan woke from consciousness, and he found himself lying on the cold, hard ground. The surreal encounter with the unknown craft still loomed large in his mind, but reality was slowly starting to creep back in. The tranquil beauty of the clearing was replaced by a charred, pungent scent, and Stefan's chest ached with unexplained intensity. So he actually staggered himself to his feet, his mind racing. What had just happened, right? Like, what had the mysterious craft gone? And more pressingly, was he okay? As he examined himself, Stefan realized that there was a really severe burn on his chest, and it was real. The fabric of his shirt was melted, revealing a pattern of grid-like wounds. So again, he called it a vent, but we don't know if it was like a real traditional vent. They just know it was in a pattern, the burn itself.
The burn was in a
Um,
pattern.
yes. And so um, the fabric of his shirt was melted away, revealing a pattern of grid like wounds. His compass was spinning wildly, and the radio emitted nothing but static. So all the equipment he brought with him, all of a sudden going completely haywire. Um, so he actually stumbled his way. I think he was actually like an hour or so out into the woods at this point. So he actually hurt and confused and dazed, actually stumbled his way
What
back to his car.
what was he doing out here?
He was prospecting. He's a prospector.
Okay.
That's what he used to do.
Okay.
And so
I
he
just
was
wanted
looking
to
for gold and silver.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so that was just something that he liked to do as a hobby, and obviously just ran across this crazy, crazy night. Um, and so, yeah, he actually hobbled his way back to his car after a grueling hike of several miles through the dense forest. His burns throbbing with each step. Eventually, he
Nice
reached
little
his car.
pain.
Yeah.
Nice little note there. Oh, by the way,
By the way, he was hurting the entire
yeah,
time.
he was in agony the entire. Okay, cool.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if I got burned by an alien crab, I'd be milking that crab all day long, man, every day. So eventually, he reached his car though, and he drove himself to the hospital, where the medical staff was both baffled and alarmed by his injuries. So doctors noted that the burns were consistent with radiation exposure, yet the grid-like pattern was unlike anything they had ever seen. Stefan suffered from symptoms typically related to radiation poisoning, such as diarrhea and vomiting. Tests at the Canadian National Atomic Research Center, that's a mouthful, found he wasn't radioactive, but he did have symptoms mirroring radiation poisoning. So lots of weird stuff happening with him. Word of Stefan's experience spread very, very quickly as an investigation was launched, led by the Royal Canadian Air Force and various like civilian agencies. The investigators found more than just scorched earth at the clearing. Radiation levels were actually detected above normal, and samples taken from the site shows unusual amounts of radioactive isotopes, further deepening the mystery. Several metallic fragments also were found and later analyzed, defying explanation. So there were little chunks of like pieces of metal, like fully fused metal, not like, little tiny pieces, but like a bar that I actually have photos of that I'm going to post that they actually found at this clearing. So again, that's what made it stood out to me was like, wait a second. Usually when you hear about alien encounter stuff, it's like, yeah, I recorded 10 seconds of it. Hey, I saw it, my friend saw it, but that's about it. There's no investigating. Like they had everybody out there. They found the clearing. They tested. They actually scientifically tested the rocks around the area. Why was it scorched? Like they found evidence of something happened there. They just don't know what.
Metallic fragments, meaning something broke off of this craft?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But like I'll show you the picture so you can see it, and I'll post it for everybody too listening because it's really fascinating.
Let's post it on our Twitter and Instagram. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm going to be posting this too throughout the week, so that way you guys can have this information. Because again, the pictures too, along with the story, are incredibly compelling. It's very interesting. So again, like radiation poisoning, like you don't get that from a burn. How do you get that out in the middle of the woods, Jeff? Besides, like, where is the explanation in that? That's where it really starts to turn my wheels, right?
Maybe
how could that be a natural explanation?
Yeah. But they said he wasn't. It wasn't radiation poisoning. It just was symptoms that mirrored.
Right.
So that's also clear.
But also the ground he was at, the actual landing place supposedly of this craft, was higher in radiation levels, isotopes than anywhere else. So there's actual evidence that there was more radiation on that area.
Nuclear powered supersonic craft, would we?
Right.
I'm
right.
Like,
I mean, come on.
But what a craft. This is where I get back to
this also what could scream, if you believe in this sort of thing, what if this was like the time travel incident?
Incident?
Like imagine this is still like it's still mechanical. So maybe it's still somewhat human. Maybe these are humans in the future. Didn't mean to land there. Didn't mean for anybody to see them. And then they took off.
Now you're reaching, Jacob.
I know I'm reaching. But if time travel did exist, I think we'd have to have some sort of evidence, right?
Yeah. For those who don't know, his favorite movie is Back to the Future.
Yeah,
so
dude, I love anything time travel.
Kind of expected that he'd go there. But let me bring you back to reality, Jacob.
Yes, please do.
This is aliens, not space.
Yeah, Jacob.
Not time
the real
travel,
stuff.
Jake.
Okay. Thank you for grounding me. I appreciate you. This is why I have a co-host here.
Another note. Again, commonality. Sulfur. That is interesting.
Yes.
Because I've heard that. I even watched a recent documentary about like a month ago. I think it was on Hulu. But it was about a story about these girls, and I can't remember the town's name. This is such a horrible way to bring up the story, but
That's okay.
essentially, the story goes they actually saw and were within 5 feet of an alien. Okay,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and they were young girls, and there's actual. It's a whole town that was involved in this story. That multiple witnesses corroborate this story, but the one thing that does come up across the people who are asked about being near it or around this supposed alien was the smell of sulfur. It smelled
Oh,
like sulfur and uh yeah, like almost ammonia.
yeah, like
Like
exhaust. So
it,
it was so
which is
weird.
interesting.
Yeah, that's
So there's a
crazy that there's
commonality
threads.
that I and again whether they're everyone this is the thing though that my brain
Yeah.
goes to. There's two different ways to think about
Yeah,
this.
let's
It's
backtrack a
either
little bit. We've gone pretty far. Let's
but it's either it's like a human consciousness thing, right? Like when everyone
Right.
was calling them UFOs, and you have this picture of a UFO and little green men, right? Little green men is ingrained
Sure.
in your brain, right? So like once a certain story gets out there and everyone kind of is aware of it, even not directly, but it's kind of in the culture of just us as humans. I
Right.
feel like certain patterns can be found because you're almost like not triggered to look to find them or recognize them, but you're kind of
You're like predisposition to it
I would
a little
assume
bit.
so. Like the way that we describe these things
Mhm.
are in the speech of alien talk, right? Like there's like a
Right.
category, like there's a dictionary around how we talk about aliens, and there's a certain verbiage that has always been used around them that feels familiar. And when maybe something like this happens, am I pulling from that dictionary because it's actually that, or is it just because that's like
Right. We're just trying to relate it to something that
right,
we've heard. And
right?
so
I don't
but
know.
that's
And
but
that
that's
could be
also I think that's human nature in general, right? Like maybe I'm totally wrong here, but I think human nature is that, right? You grow up with something, you have certain beliefs of what something should be, and then sometimes your brain in the order of trying to make sense of things that are happening to you, you try to fit things in that box because it like corroborates what you already believe. And so I think that's also a natural human thing to do. And so I'm not saying you're wrong.
yeah.
I just find it very fascinating, especially just because there's so much evidence here. Like there's evidence of like what I don't know, but like evidence of something happened here. We just don't know what exactly happened, and what really happened to him.
Well, you
So
know, when we and this could be a whole other tangent that we don't have to go down,
no,
but
let's do
you
it.
know when like I think one of the main thoughts I've had as a kid, and funny enough, we probably had as brothers growing up, when we've talked about aliens or we've talked about like ancient cultures, and people think of deities or these supposedly, even I'm not trying to be religious, but like in maybe religious texts and things like the conversation around
Right,
how do I phrase this? How do I phrase this? Like things being like things visiting Earth, and like my question had always been, why are they not happening now? Why is that not a thing that's happening concurrently, or
mm,
why is that a thing of the past? And I saw a statistic the other day too, where it was the U.S. The U.S. has like 80% of all UFO claims and sightings supposedly, and
yeah,
it's just interesting to think like maybe it is happening still. Like
yeah,
maybe this is what the ancient cultures when we see these figures in the sky or these mystical like
and that's
descriptions
what these
of
are.
maybe it is always been happening,
Interesting.
and maybe that's what this is, but we just categorize them as UFOs. That really
Dude,
is the whole ancient like alien theory, isn't it? Which is
yes,
aliens affected us
right.
and they were the deities, and that's
But
such
you could
a
also bring it to like now, like not to go too far, but like bring it to now, right? Like you talk about the uncontacted tribes that are on the like in the world right now. Imagine you flying like a drone show over them. Like people make jokes about that stuff, but like I can only imagine like what would be written about those things
yeah.
from that tribe in their history passed down. If they saw like because you see all those amazing shows now with drones and stuff that just seems otherworldly. Like imagine
Hmm.
that happening to you where that distance from technology is so far apart. Um, you have to find a way. Like humans want to understand the world around them, and so they'll
Mm,
do what they can to kind of piece together what that explanation could be. And so
yeah.
I feel like that's what we're doing here. That's what we do on these podcasts, right? We're trying to understand um, how
A
these
lot of
things
this could be
happened.
ignorant, what I'm saying,
Yeah,
in the
no.
way of like not having enough information to make an opinion on that thought around.
Sure.
Because obviously, this is such a debated topic. It could be real, it could be fake. Aliens
Yeah.
could be existing with us and living among us, as the most
Among Us,
extreme
dude.
say, like Elon Musk and the rest. They're lizards, but or they could be, or this could just be human. Like the blind spot.
Right.
Just we're seeing something we don't know how to describe, and that immediately the easy dictionary to pull from is alien craft and
That's true.
spacecraft. But
That's true. You never know. And so like that's where this gets really crazy. Um
transition us
so
back in.
no, yeah, no, don't worry. I'm pulling us back in. I got you, Jeffrey. We can get back here. So we just talked about um right, the little pieces, the metallic fragments that were later analyzed and found at the site.
Yeah.
So after that, witnesses actually came forward reporting sightings of unexplained objects in the sky. Others claimed to have a similar experience of these encounters, but none were as well documented or as baffling as Stefan's. So the object's composition, its behavior, its origin, all remained elusive, and the investigation continued with no clear answers in sight. The Falcon Lake incident became one of the most thoroughly investigated cases of its kind, and yet, despite all of the efforts from both military and civilian investigators, the truth behind the strange craft and Stefan's encounter remained buried and hidden. And so there's a lot of mystery still surrounding this, but I do have a little bit of a conclusion to this story as well.
Hit me with it.
So to kind of dive into the conclusion now, obviously it remains one of the most puzzling and well-documented cases. So eventually, Stefan actually returned to that site of the encounter as well, locating his burnt shirt, melted gloves and tools, and a scorched earth circle at the supposed landing site. Samples were taken and found to be radioactive. The physical evidence left at the site, the burns on Stefan's body, um, the metallic fragments, and the unusual radiation levels were all real and tangible, yet no conventional explanation has ever been provided, leaving a void filled only by speculation and wonder.
And that's your conclusion?
No, Stefan's life was forever altered by that day, as you can imagine. Like, I would live with that for the rest of my life. The once skeptical mechanic became a reluctant figure in the world of UFO enthusiasts. His story was both celebrated and scrutinized. The wounds healed, but the scars remained, and a constant reminder of a moment that defied understanding. The incident actually took a toll on Stefan's health, both physically and mentally. He suffered from reoccurring illness, which he attributed to the exposure to the craft, and the fascination with this story never waned. But Stefan maintained his privacy, rarely speaking publicly about the event. Stefan never actually sought publicity, maintaining a consistent story until he officially died in 1999. His son later then published a book about the incident, and the Canadian government acknowledged that Stefan had witnessed something, but declined to investigate further. So, see, there's weird stuff being talked about here. Maybe it was something military. Like, we don't know.
Right. But would it be Canadian? Do we think the Canadians are that far advanced in the 60s?
Maybe, man. I don't know.
Really? We think the Canadians did this. Is that what we're saying?
I'm just saying, no one knows. And so right. Maybe there's a slight possibility that the Canadians had a really nice, very polite looking alien spacecraft that landed in the middle of the woods. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right.
But yeah, so officially though, his testimony remained consistent all the way until the end and stands as one of the most compelling accounts of a close encounter of the unknown. Experts, researchers, and enthusiasts continue to study the case, hoping to find a clue that will officially unlock that mystery. Books have been written, documentaries have been produced, but the core question remains unanswered. What really happened at Falcon Lake? So that's really the full story, but I found it absolutely fascinating when I was starting to research this. And so I'm glad I'm able to share this with everybody. Regardless of what we think, what happened, what didn't happen, I think that's kind of the fun.
Yeah, the speculation can go on for a long time. I think we should do a poll. Let's just go ahead and do a poll. I love my polls.
Yeah. How many of you guys believe that aliens exist? Whatever form. Not little green men, but just like aliens in general. I would love to know.
I'm going to put a poll on there. If you're listening on Spotify, at least, you can answer the poll. I don't think it shows up on the other formats, but if you're listening on there, I want to know. Or send
Yeah.
us a line on Twitter or somewhere else where we can see it, because I just kind of want to know what the consensus it is. And maybe it's just our audience is. I want to know if our audience is thinks the same way. That would be fun to
Yeah,
see.
me too. I know. I feel like it's really fun because I feel like sometimes we'll kind of switch it up, but like every now and then I'll bring in something like this that it's like, this definitely qualifies as history. This was a real event that happened. Something happened at this point. But it still kind of leans into that conspiracy area, which is really fun.
Only because we don't know and there'll be no way of knowing what it actually
Right.
was.
Right. Exactly.
So there's two things I can think about maybe, and this is a thought here. He either
Okay.
set this up, did it to himself, or it was real.
Yeah.
There's really no in between. He either, because it's him by himself, right?
Yes.
He's the sole proprietor of what he experienced. So he either scorched the earth, burned himself, and made this whole fiasco happen,
Somehow. Right.
and then was determined to be silent about it and gain no money or publicity off of it, and just live his life after making up the story. Right.
I just don't see what he has to gain.
I know
from that.
exactly. So I'm not trying to. I guess I'm presenting it in that way. It's like that's the facts though of what happened, or what he I guess did.
Right.
And the other explanation is this did happen, and what he saw, he thinks he saw, at least how he describes it, is real.
Yeah.
And he saw something we don't, and that then leads to the question: alien or secret government spacecraft.
Yeah. I mean, that could be the
So-
truth, right? Maybe this was his truth. Maybe he experienced exactly what happened here, but he just didn't know like what it was, right? And there might be some sort of like middle of the ground explanation to it. So it's
hard to
becomes
find
very
middle
interesting.
ground in that though. That's where I get to that. That's why I go all the way around, is because I come back to
That's because it's aliens, Jeff.
Right.
It's just
That's because it's yeah. It's because it is. But yeah, I guess we'll never know. But I think we
Yeah.
should try to keep exploring this topic in later episodes and maybe bring up other stories. I would like to get back to that and clarify that story about the town that I brought up about the sulfur, and also Bob
Right.
Lazar's story would be interesting to dive into.
It really would be. I'd
Just
be
as
totally
a
down for that.
conversation. But if you guys find that interesting or would find more alien podcasts,
If we're a bunch of alien believers here, okay?
I mean, I don't want to get too far off the history
Yeah.
topic, but this is a part of our history. So
Yeah.
I think it falls right within the scope of what
I think so, too.
we can talk about.
I think so too. And it's very interesting. And plus it's just a fun conversation either regardless of like hearing these people's experiences. So I'd be totally down for that.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into our reoccurring segment. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Game show time. Let's go.
Welcome, dear casual historians, to Fact or Fiction, a game where history and imagination dance a tantalizing tango. My name is Leo, your friendly historical ghost. Here's the deal. Each round, I'll serve up 3 historical morsels. Your job: guess which are facts and which are pure fiction. Each correct guess earns you points. The contestant with the most points at the end wins the title of Master Historian. So, are you ready to sift through the sands of time? Let's play Fact or Fiction.
Leo sounds very
British?
smart.
British is the word you were looking for?
British.
He does have a British accent.
It's funny that he chose to be incarnate in a British man.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, he's just an all knowing being and he just happens to be British. What's
Yeah.
wrong with that, Jeffrey? I don't understand.
Nothing. I just found it amusing.
I find it amusing too. But I thought that was really fun. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of play these games. Honestly, these ending segments are so fun. And there is also a little extra detail I want to include to this. So not only are we like going to be reading 3 stories and trying to determine which one's real or fake, but also I've been informed too that there can be multiple real ones. So it's not just there is one clear like real
come
story.
on.
It could be all 3. It could be 2. It could be 1.
Right.
And so that's where I think it'll be really fun too. So
You're just giving yourself more opportunity to get more points because you haven't won.
of course I
3
am.
weeks.
I gotta.
in.
Okay. I've gotta win one of these.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
How many
So
rounds do we have this time?
yeah, I believe I have 3 rounds and a bonus round, so we have plenty if we want to go through. Or
If we get that, if
we
we
get
don't
that
get
far.
too far off topic, yeah.
Yeah, of course, which we tend to do a lot. So no
Okay.
worries.
You want to hit the music and we can
Here, let me.
run it through.
Yeah,
Um,
let's roll here real quick.
if so, I did learn while you're doing that, for those listening who do want to participate, uh, I can only technically put 6 answers on the poll. So basically, we can only put the first 2 rounds up for debate, which I'm gonna do. But just so you know, the third round, if we get to that, you're just gonna have to guess at home, and then
Yeah, we might even put it up on like Instagram would be a good place for that too. I can
yeah,
make a poll
true.
for that third one.
Oh, Twitter also. Twitter
Yeah.
is we can do every round. Perfect.
Heck yeah. No, I'm excited. So we can do that.
Let's do that.
But yeah, let's just go ahead and jump right into round 1. Okay, so we have 3 stories here, Jeffrey, and they're just as crazy as they've always been through all of the segments so far. That seems to be the common thread. But I'll just start reading the first one to you here first. So the first one is the Pig War, a territorial dispute between the U.S. and British Canada was sparked by the shooting of a pig. So that's story number 1. Just vague enough that I'm like that could be true. I don't know for sure. The second story is the moon cheese theory. In the 17th century, it was widely believed that the moon was made of cheese.
Okay, they took that from Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, that's where my mind went to.
For anyone who knows what that is,
yeah, you're a real one. You're a real one.
The moon cheese theory. Yeah. Okay.
All right. And we got another one with the Eiffel Tower. So it says the Eiffel Tower is almost dismantled. The Eiffel Tower was originally intended to be a temporary structure and was almost taken down. So those are our 3 stories. And we have to determine how many of them are truthful, Jeff.
I feel like the Eiffel Tower is true. Because for some reason, there's a vague bell in my brain going that I've heard that before.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and put a mark down on number 1 or number 3.
Okay.
As my vote. And whether there's a second one that's true.
I'm feeling a little antsy. I mean, this middle moon cheese one is cracking me up.
In the 17th century.
Right? A lot of weird stuff happened, man. A lot of weird things were believed back then.
So before we answer, let's set the ground rule, since there's multiple ones that could be right.
Right.
If you get one right and one wrong, I'm going to call that a 0 for the round, right? Because you're 1 for 2, so you can either hedge your bets, only bet 1, or you go for 2 points. If you need to make up some point difference.
Yeah, but we can definitely play it that way.
Jacob, you want to give your first answer before I give my second?
I mean, if I was just gonna roll through, my first initial thoughts was the pig war seems plausible. The Eiffel Tower seems plausible as well. The moon cheese one, though, is so out there that I can't help but feel like it might be so far out there that it could be true.
All right, we need the time. We need the music playing.
Yeah,
because
I know.
What do you got? What's your answers?
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick. I think I'm gonna choose the pig war and the Eiffel Tower and just be safe this round.
Okay, I'm gonna do the Eiffel Tower and the moon cheese theory.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. All right, you ready for the answers, Jeff?
Yep.
You ready for this? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and reveal the answers. Oh, okay. So the first one, the pig war, is true. A territorial dispute between the U.S. and British Canada was indeed sparked by the shooting of a pig in 1859. It's known as the Pig War, and thankfully the pig was the only casualty. Wow. Okay. So there you go. Oh, so look at me sweeping. Story number 2. The moon cheese theory is false.
Of course. I just thought maybe for fun. I thought it'd be fun.
I walked you right into that one, Jeff.
I thought it'd be fun.
While there have been many beliefs about the moon, the idea that the moon was made of cheese was never a widely held scientific theory in the 17th century.
Tell that to Wallace and Gromit.
Exactly. You tell that to the movies. And the third one, the Eiffel Tower was almost dismantled, is also true. The Eiffel Towers initially met with criticism and was intended to be a temporary structure in the 1889 Exposition Universelle. Did I say that right? Hopefully I read that right. Plans to dismantle it. But it was considered, but ultimately abandoned. Wow. Okay. So that's awesome. So 2 points for me. And does that equal out to you for 0?
0. Yep.
Wow.
2-0.
Okay.
Put me behind on the first round. That's okay.
just going to go ahead and prep round 2 here for my win, my victory lap. So, all right, let's jump right into round 2 here next. All right, so the stories for round 2 starts with Napoleon's height. Napoleon Bonaparte was actually taller than the average Frenchman of his time.
Propaganda.
Propaganda. The Colosseum's roof. The Roman Colosseum once had a retractable roof. What?
Okay.
What? Okay.
Okay.
That scene. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last one, the Great Wall of China is visible from space. The Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from space.
That last line is the kicker for me.
The only man-made structure? Is that what you're...
The only... Correct. That's what I'm my brain triggered on. But I don't know why I'm saying this out loud. I should be keeping this to myself.
No, you shouldn't. Please tell me. Tell me what you're thinking right now.
I voted first last time. I think we should switch this up and let you go first now.
I think that's fair. I'm feeling pretty confident in this one so far. So I think Napoleon's height is true. I think he was. In fact, I think I've read that somewhere. So that's just my general inkling. I got a feeling about the Napoleon's height thing. So I'm going to claim that is a true story. Colosseum, Lord, no, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Just like the cheese. And then the Great Wall of China. I think this one is really interesting too. I feel like I've heard both things. That this was like a myth. Oh man.
You're trying to stall to get an answer out of your brain.
No, I'm just trying to give the people. Gut. I'm trying to give the people my explanation of where my brain's at. So
give us your answer.
All right. Shut up and give us your answer, dude.
Trying to make sure you don't think your way into something.
All right. So I'm just gonna play it safe. I'm gonna go with just Napoleon's height as being the truthful story.
Okay. This leaves me to go number 1 and number 3 because I think I'm going to try to get a point up on you. So I'm going to say 1 and 3
final
again.
Answer.
Yes.
All right, let's reveal the answers. Leo,
I don't believe it though. I don't think because it says the only man-made structure visible from space.
Why are you backpedaling? Why are you backpedaling, Jeff?
For the game, I need this point.
Oh, here we go. All right, number 1, Napoleon's height is true.
Yep.
Contrary to popular belief, Napoleon Bonaparte was not particularly short. He was about 5 feet 7 inches, which was average or even slightly taller than the average Frenchman of his time. So all that was propaganda. So him being short was from his enemies. I remember reading that somewhere. So that kind of clicked with me immediately. It did work. Yes, for sure. All right. So the second one, the Colosseum's roof is obviously false. So it did not have a retractable roof. I really wish it just said, obviously, they did not have mechanics back in the Colosseum time. But, right, it said it was known to have an awning system known as the velarium that could extend to provide shade for spectators. That's the only thing that was close to it. All right, and so the third one really determines it, Jeff. So the third one is false. Contrary to popular belief, the Great Wall of China is not visible from space with the naked eye under standard conditions. Wow. Okay.
Wait, that's a low line. Under standard conditions. What
under
about
normal
clear
circumstances? What if the weather's beautiful?
Yeah. What if it's sunny out?
Listen,
okay,
Jeff, I don't make the rules. I'm just sweeping.
I'll take it. You got 3-0.
Look, this is my game to lose at this point. I don't think I don't know if I can mess this up really. I think
you say that. Let's go.
I know. All right. Give me round. I'm just prepping for the third answers here. So we do this last one here. So all right. Round 3. The Trojan horse. The Trojan horse was actually a giant wooden rabbit. Immediately Monty Python pops in my brain for that. The second story is the Salem witch trials. The witches in the Salem witch trials were burned at the stake. And then the last one was Julius Caesar's last words were "Et tu, brute." All right. So since I kind of answered first, I think we should trade off, Jeffrey. So I think this is your time, buddy.
This is not a Hail Mary. This is me actually thinking this.
Okay.
Number 3, yes. It's true. I know that.
Okay.
Number 1, I do remember it not being an actual horse. I believe maybe that rings true in my brain that it wasn't an actual horse. And so I'm going to say, yes, that's true as well.
You think it's a giant wooden rabbit?
For some reason, I don't know why my brain goes, yeah.
Maybe.
And then Salem witch trials. I don't know that anyone was actually burned at the stake for that in Salem.
Interesting.
I could be. Oh God!
You got this, Jeff. You just got to be confident. You just got to go with your gut.
I'm gonna say number 1 and number 3 are correct.
Okay.
And I'm going to say yes. Number 2 is correct. All three.
All three?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're going all 3. All in, buddy. I like it.
You're 3-0, you know. I need these.
I like it. Okay. So now I can kind of choose mine. I think the Trojan horse one is actually false. I actually think the Salem witch trials is false too. I don't think anybody was ever really burned at the stake, from my understanding. Maybe I'm totally off. Watch me just be completely wrong. And I believe the last one is true. So I think the only true one to me is Julius Caesar, but that's going to be my final guess for this one.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's go ahead and reveal the answers. Hopefully everybody listening has picked theirs, which one they believe is true. All right. Come on. I can't lose this. I can't do it.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think you have me beat.
Okay. Number 1, the Trojan horse story is false.
Ugh.
The Trojan horse was not a wooden rabbit. It was a horse, according to the ancient Greek.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. But for some reason, I could have
Jeffrey,
swore
it was a horse.
And then again, this is just making me look like a fool, but I could have swore I saw something that it was not actually a horse.
I think this is just making up for the amount of times you've won so far.
Maybe it's Monty Python that stuck in my brain.
Very much so, which I really wanted it to be a bunny rabbit. But you know, that cracks me up how that was phrased.
I kind of had to. That's what I'm going to tell myself at night. I kind of had to choose all 3.
So number 2 was the Salem witch trials was also false. So contrary to popular belief, the accused witches during the Salem witch trials were not burned at the stake. Most were hanged, and one was pressed to death with large stones. Ooh, that's a terrible way to go.
And the last one was true, right?
Honestly, history has a way of the worst way of people dying. Like there is horrifying things that you read, and that's just one of them. Pressed with large stones. What the heck? All right, and the last ones was also false. All 3 were false, Jeff.
Wait. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure I've read that.
The famous phrase "Et tu, Brute" was attributed to Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar, but there's no definitive historical evidence that these were Caesar's actual last words.
Technicality.
Or just facts. So I lost a point too. So you can't be mad.
-1 to 3.
There's also a bonus round, and if you want to play double or nothing, I'm down.
You want to give me a shot to win?
I think you deserve a shot. I think we should double down now.
Let's do it.
For the last bonus round. All right, so let me go ahead and prep this up.
Yeah, I think that makes me -1, and that makes you 3.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the last bonus round. All right, Jeffrey, so this is where you could win it all right here. The first story is the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The Leaning Tower of Pisa was designed to actually lean on purpose. The second one was Viking helmets. Vikings wore helmets with horns. That's pretty straightforward. Benjamin Franklin's kite experiment. Benjamin Franklin discovered electricity by flying a kite in a thunderstorm. All right, so I guess you answered last, so we're just trading off here. So I can definitely go first. I don't want to give you any hints, though, even though I do want to explain why I think the certain things I do. I think number 1 is correct. I think it was the Leaning Tower of Pisa was designed to lean. I think the Viking helmets is actually a myth. I think that is not a real Viking thing. And then Benjamin Franklin kite experiment. Oh man.
You already won, Jake. You can.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna say hell yeah, he did it. He got struck by lightning, discovered it. just go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 1 and 3.
1 and 3. Okay. All right. So let's reveal the last answers here, just so that way everybody at home, can know what the real stuff was. Okay, so the Leaning Tower of Pisa was false. So I was wrong. So the Leaning Tower of Pisa was not designed to lean. The tilt is due to unstable foundation, soil, and poor construction methods. Wow. Talk about just like being rude. Just calling them out. Number 2, Viking helmets was also false. So despite popular depictions, Vikings did not wear helmets with horns. This is a myth perpetuated by the 19th century art and opera.
I did know that.
Yeah, I did know that one too. The last one is true. So Benjamin Franklin's kite experiment.
Benjamin Franklin this in class
did conduct an experiment involving a kite and a key during a thunderstorm to demonstrate the electrical nature of lightning, although the details are often exaggerated. Right. So, wow. So, okay. So again, I feel like I learned a little bit of something here today. I really thought that Leaning Tower of Pisa was on purpose. I genuinely did.
That was the one that shocked me, along with the Julius Caesar last words.
Right.
But obviously I'm thinking of Shakespeare, so that makes sense. But
wow.
Noted.
Nice.
Good round, Jake. Good week. You won. Way to go.
Heck yeah. I got to get on the board eventually, okay? I just had to do it in spectacular fashion, okay?
Yep,
so that's
you
all.
did. You blew me out this week, so.
Heck yeah. So now I'm here to continue the winning tradition. That's my game plan from now on.
Yeah.
The grand finale. And you've all survived. Historically speaking, that's an achievement. You've guessed, you've missed, and you've made history confused. Thanks for playing Fact or Fiction, where the facts are optional, but the laughs are mandatory. See you next time, if you dare to return.
Man, that Leo guy has really got a mouse
he just
on
sounds. Yeah, he's pretty smart aleck, which I kind of like his personality.
I think he thinks he knows everything.
Well, when you live forever and you see all of history, I mean, I guess that can kind of make you a little stuck up, just like
AI. That's what they're all gonna sound like.
Yeah,
condescending and British.
Every single one is British. That'd crack me up. But that was another episode in the books. Again, Jeffrey, thank you for joining me, and thank you everybody that listened to this.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Jeffrey, for hanging with me. But again, we do regular episodes every single week. So if you really like this episode, please go ahead and give us a rating. Reach out to us on social media. Subscribe on YouTube now that we have those coming up as well. If that's how you like to listen.
Send us your hate comments.
Yes, please, all of it.
Tell me how much you dislike me.
Oh my God. Okay.
I really want to see it.
Yeah, I want to feel the passion.
I want to feel it.